kind of how you get them in a position to make sure they're writing a book that's not just getting their ideas on paper, but that it's actually going to tell a story well.
So a mistake that authors will make is say, well, I'm writing a book and it's for everyone. Well, if your book is for everyone, it's really not for anyone.
Welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs, growing 1% everyday podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs podcast, where we discuss how to grow 1% every day in both business and in sales. Today, we have Becky Robinson, an author and the owner, founder, and CEO of Weaving Influence, a digital marketing agency that supports authors to write, publish, and promote their work to the masses. She's helped over 250 books be published and launched. And today she's going to talk to us about how she can make your dream of publishing a book a reality. Thank you, Becky, for joining us.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Kyle.
No problem. This is so important in today's age because I think that as audiobooks become more of a thing and as information becomes more readily available to people, books are becoming more and more. I always think about the Tai Lopez. Tai Lopez became huge because he was sitting in his car with his Ferrari, his Lamborghini, but his most important thing was his bookshelf in the back. And you're helping people make their knowledge and their understanding of the world become a physical attribute that people can actually absorb and develop off of. So it's such an incredible thing that you're doing. How did you get into it? How did you get down the path of helping these businesses and creating an agency like you have today?
Sure. So I had been a stay-at-home mom, Kyle, and I was doing some social media marketing. And one of the assignments I had was to create a social media marketing plan to launch a business book for the person I was working with at the time. Then after that, I had a bunch of people coming to me. I was on Twitter mostly back then, asking me if I could help them to strategize and launch their books. So starting in about 2011, 2012, I've been partnering with authors. Definitely got started first on marketing books. And in later years, we added additional services to help authors who want to self-publish their books to be able to produce their books from the time they have a finished manuscript all the way through to their book's release and beyond. So most of the authors who we work with are people who have written a book that complements the expertise in their businesses. And they use their books not only as like a business card, but, as a way of attracting their ideal customers and sharing the value that they have with their customer base and others.
It's such a huge value statement. If you could write a book about something, you obviously know the topic pretty well, right? So developing that solidification in the market by leveraging, getting your mind down on paper and solidifying that understanding in a real way that allows you to share it to the masses is super powerful. When you're going through this process and you're looking at individuals, who are you normally working with? Do you find that there's a lot of solidified businesses nowadays that are starting to get into the realm of developing a book because they have the time to do so? Or are you seeing people entering into the market and trying to start with developing a book as the way that they introduce themselves to the world?
Sure. So, I've been in business nearly 13 years now, and many of the authors that we've served are more toward like the end of their careers. They might be coaches or consultants or therapists or, service-based business owners who, have been developing their craft over time. We do work with a lot of first-time authors. And what I'm seeing is that a lot of folks will write a book as a legacy product. So they may have been in business for a while. And because they have so much expertise, so many stories to share, when they get to a certain point in their career, they're wanting to put together a book so that they can share their legacy ideas in a way that will endure. Certainly there is a case to be made for people starting earlier in their careers to be able to write books to complement their business offerings. But most of what I've seen in terms of the types of authors that my company seems to attract are those ones who may be a little bit farther along in their career and have developed, ideas or processes or frameworks that they want to be able to share with the world through a book.
Love that. And it makes a lot of sense. You never should see a homeless man giving advice on finances, right? That's what I say to a lot of people. Make sure that the content that you're reading, especially in today's age of AI and all this technology, make sure the content you're absorbing is coming from a real place. So with that being said, you're working with these individuals that are trying to solidify their positioning in the market. Can you walk through a little bit of your introduction with them and kind of how you get them in a position to make sure they're writing a book that's not just getting their ideas on paper, but that it's actually going to tell a story well? Because that's got to be one of the biggest parts is, everyone has all these ideas and all these concepts, but how do we put it into a term and to a passage that from beginning to end, keep the reader engaged and keep it in a story form? So do you have a lot of difficulties with that? Or what do you find to be the hardest part?
Well, so when I'm working with authors who are still developing the ideas for their books, one of the things that we want to get clear about is who the unique audience is that they're writing for. So a mistake that authors will make is say, "Well, I'm writing a book and it's for everyone." Well, if your book is for everyone, it's really not for anyone. So we want to get very clear about, who is the person who needs your book now? What are the unique felt needs that they might have, and how can you craft a book to reach that specific audience? So I have an author who I'm working with right now, and I've been coaching her as she crafts a table of contents and begins to write her book. And, we keep coming back to, is the content that she's crafting in the book, does it connect back to her ideal reader? The other thing is, there's really nothing new that's out there. There are, tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of books that are released every year. There's millions of books on Amazon. And so one thing I like to coach authors about is really making sure that their book brings out their unique experiences, stories, and perspectives, because, there may be thousands of books out there on leadership. So if you're someone who's wanting to write about a book about leadership, what is it particularly that you have to add? And this is not to discourage anyone from writing a book. The fact that others have written a book on a similar topic doesn't really matter, because you are the only one who can write your book. So, the more authentic someone can be in bringing their unique stories and experiences to life, the better the book will be. People connect with people, and it's those unique stories that AI can't replicate. Your own stories are yours only. So, the more you can really be sure that you're bringing yourself to the book, the better it will be.
So let's talk a little bit about weaving influence, the business itself. Where do you find your uniqueness in this process? Is it working directly with the author and helping them through that? Is your ability to get the publication out or to promote it afterwards? Where do you find your value to be different than kind of your competitors in the space?
In terms of uniqueness, one of the things that we bring is the depth of our experience. So we've partnered with authors to launch books for over a decade. We've launched over 250 books. And so as a result, our team as a whole, not only me, we have deep expertise in really understanding the journey that an author goes through. We bring a specific empathy to really understanding the emotions that an author might feel as they go throughout their publishing and book launching journey. We also fill a particular niche where, we're not promoting every single kind of book. We are primarily promoting business, nonfiction, a little bit of self-help. And so it's that market of what does it take to successfully launch a business book, where we stand out from other particular agencies that might be just generally providing marketing and publicity services to authors. We are very values oriented in the way that we deliver our services to clients. So we view our authors as partners along the journey. We want to collaborate with them closely. We want to be available and responsive, and we really want to meet them with the right resources at the right time across their journey. Unlike other digital marketing or book publicity agencies, also, we don't just offer like off-the-shelf packages. We customize each proposal to reach the individual client's needs. We start with strategy always, and we want to make sure that we are as invested with our authors in creating the success that they want in the world.
Longevity, history of success, and then empathy, the ability to really resonate with them. And then the fact that you're in that niche. I mean, I know personally, if you're an entrepreneur or business owner listening to this right now, I'll be contacting Becky in the next 3 to 5 years, because I believe that's one of the biggest steps in our business, right? I'm in the B2B space where we're trying to help businesses grow, and there's just such an infinite amount of knowledge. But it's the same criteria if you are a roofer or a fencer. Yes, it might seem like you have a B2C business, but solidifying yourself as a position of knowledge and a position of expertise, so that when people, DIY is the first step before you hire somebody, right? Everyone thinks they can do it themselves. So even if you're in a home improvement category, releasing content like this and working with an individual like Becky to solidify yourself in the space against your competitors. How many other people in your space would have a book about this topic? If you can ask yourself that question, you can think, I don't really know anybody. Get into the space now. Contact Becky as fast as you can. Start developing a book with your knowledge and your understanding to separate yourself from the market and solidify yourself as a true professional within your space. Becky, with that being said, you have over, you have a lot of time working with these authors and you have a lot of development and understanding. Is that as you said, one of the biggest thing is understanding where they live and the empathy there. And that takes a lot of care, compassion, and understanding of their structure. But to build a business like you have to go through a lot of trials and tribulation. And the timeline that you've been here, it's been an ever vultuous path for books, right? Audibles and other things of that nature have exploded. Podcasts have blown up. Books have always been there. I think they always will be there. But in the progression of your agency and the creation of in the creation of weaving influence, when you're developing this business, did you go through any trials or tribulations or challenges that made you adjust your pitch, adjust your business, or something that would resonate with the other business owners out there that you had to go through in that time that made you who you are and the business what it is today?
Well, I think probably the thing that I've learned the most across the 13 years, the thing that's caused like the most stress potentially over time is getting clear about the right people to hire to support a growing business. And, it's it might be easy sometimes to find people who want to work in your business, but they may not be the right fit. So along the way, I've really had to get careful about ensuring that I hire people whose values are aligned with mine. And I think one of the greatest joys as an entrepreneur comes in being able to develop long-term relationships with team members, employees as well. So currently, among our team, we have my COO has been working with me for 12 years. We have account managers who have been at the company for 8 years or longer. And so, getting clear about what does it take to be successful as an employee in your organization, and then being sure that you can hire people for values. You can always train them on the skills. But I think in the early years, the thing that caused the most pain or anxiety was when I hired people and, it just wasn't a great fit. So I think we're at a great place now. And I'm very thankful and grateful for the team I have around me because your team is the people that you work with every day. So you want to enjoy them. You want to develop close connected relationships. And when the team relationships work, then you can serve your clients much more effectively.
I think you have every entrepreneur and every business owner nodding in their head right now, right? Because we've all experienced what a bad hire does. We all experience what a good hire would do to the business. And it's a huge, huge factor for your growth or your failure, right? So I 100% align with that. And as a business owner, as you can see, she's in a vastly different category than most. She's very unique in where she lives, but it's the same thing. You got to make sure that you're building core, as she explained with her business when we asked for the overview, she dove into her core values. She dove into why they do what they do, who they really are. And she embodies that with all of how she treats her clients and how she treats her employees. And it creates a beautiful system here that allows for you as a business owner to have a one-stop shop to get your ideas onto paper and published in a way that can be actually absorbed or launched in a way that can be actually absorbed by the masses. So let me ask you this, Becky, where's it going? Right? Like I said earlier, there's been a lot of evolution of Audible and podcasts and things of that nature. Where do you see your industry going in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you see a diminishing of books? Do you see an increase of individuality in books? You see AI starting to write books and you having to publish AI content and sift through the craziness? You know better than most. Where is the world of publications and book development going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's a really excellent question, Kyle. And I obviously can't see the future, but the development that I've seen in the last 13 years is that, increasingly from when I started to where I am, the market just gets noisier and noisier, which is why it's so important for people to identify their unique perspective and what they have to add to others. And I think that for those people who still like aspire to write books and want to use books as tools in their organization, we're likely to see that, potentially audiences become more and more niche. So if you look at in general, like what books are selling a lot, there's a big divide between like the best-selling books that are often authored by people who already have fame and fortune and can invest a lot of money to get marketing and publicity for their books. So like Barack Obama, I think he sold 1.3 million copies on the day his book was released. Most authors, especially most self-published authors, the average is 250 copies across the lifetime of a self-published book. So you can see that it's more of like a niche product for those authors. The authors that we work with, an author who can sell multiple thousand copies of their book in a year is doing well. for most business books, the threshold is 10,000 copies in a year. If you can sell 10,000 copies in a year, you really set yourself up to have a longer term contribution. But what I'm going to see, Kyle, is that's going to get more and more difficult for folks. The more books that are out there, the more that we're competing with podcasts or other types of content that people may consume. It's difficult to sell books, and it's also difficult to get people to read books. So I think one of the opportunities that we have, anyone who's a content creator, whether you've written a book or whether you haven't written a book, the more that you can repurpose and reuse your content in various formats. So like take this podcast, for example. You mentioned before we started recording, Kyle, that you have 40 episodes. So you could take those 40 episodes and pull out the 40 best lessons and make those into an easy to read ebook where, the top 40 lessons on business from my first 40 podcast interviews. Like the more we can repurpose and reuse content, whether it's from video to audio or from video and audio to some written asset, or taking those written assets and making them into interviews. One of the interesting things I did with my book when it came out is I put a QR code at the end of every chapter. And when I was writing my book, I did a lot of interviews. So all of those interviews became podcast episodes. And then when I published the book, I had a QR code that took people to a free resource page where they could have additional learning on the topics in the book. So I think the more we can provide value in different formats and repurpose and reuse our work as we create it, the more we'll reach different people who like content in different ways. So not everyone's going to read a physical book. A lot of people do prefer audiobooks. But I think where we need to get increasingly as content creators is being really flexible and being able to provide value in lots of different formats.
I love that, Becky. And I think that there's going to be an opportunity in the next maybe 5 to 7 years, the AR and the VR space, right? The AR and VR space, I think would be huge for book development because I think it's one of those things, as you said, book reading has actually depleted a little bit because there's so many different competition for actual reading. There's the audio, there's the video aspect. But once we can start bringing the story into a visual outlet like an AR or VR could, imagine having glasses on and reading the book and then looking up and it showed you a scene of what you were reading. Wow, book becomes much, much more powerful, right? So, but I believe that there's a lot of complexity that goes into that, and your space being in the leading position of helping B2B, really business owners, understand how to solidify themselves in the space by getting their words in writing, legitimizing their story, as you're saying, helping them through that process to make sure their information out there is good, but it's also a good story. It's worth reading and attaining, and developing in a way that puts them in a position of authority by getting it out to the masses and supporting them in that structure, puts you on the cutting edge of what I see happening with all high-end brand ambassadors as well as large business owners in 2024 and 2025. If you're a business owner, you need to get a book written or you need to solidify yourself in the market. Or as we said before, if you're looking at your market and says, none of my competitions have ever written a book in my category, reach out to Becky. Becky Robinson from the Weaving Influence Group can definitely help you structure your book and structure a system that can solidify your authority in the market. Becky, you're obviously very, very intellectual, and you're looking at this in not just a sense of writing a book, but also storytelling and publications and getting your why out there. My question to you is, where do you find your Kaizen? Where do you find your opportunity to improve yourself daily with the constant changing that's happening within the market? Are you looking at publications? Are you reading a lot of different books that maybe some of the listeners aren't aware of nowadays that can help them with storytelling? I apologize. But where do you spend your time, Becky, to improve yourself, not just personally, but also in business day in and day out?
Sure, that's a great question. And one thing that's been interesting about my journey, Kyle, is that our clients are a constant source of learning for me. So the books that we're promoting, as I read, some of them and interact with the authors themselves, I have multiple opportunities per day to become a better business leader and business owner because of those connected relationships with the clients that we have who are experts in their field. As an example, I'm working with a client right now. He owns a company whose name you would know. I'm not going to say it, but just the opportunity to interact with him, getting to see like what has really fueled his business journey. It's incredible. I also follow other industry leaders. There's a great book industry leader. Her name is Jane Friedman, and Jane puts out a paid newsletter that I've subscribed to. She also has a free newsletter. And so I'm wanting to read and engage with content from others who are doing the same kind of work that I'm doing so that I can stay up to date on all the best practices, not only creating and sharing what I'm seeing, but learning from what others are seeing as well. So kind of the combination of, following trusted thought leaders, but also the daily interaction with the authors that we serve, reading and hearing the content that they create has kept me on the edge of my learning.
Entrepreneurs and business owners listening to this right now, how awesome is that to have someone that's every single day living within her business and actually engaging with every one of her clients to evolve herself in this space, right? If I've talked to a lot of different people about writing my book because my goal is to write one. And I haven't had someone that's so ingrained in the daily activities as well as wanting to be there with the client to understand their why, understand their reasoning, and understand their development. Becky, you've built something absolutely incredible here. I have one more bonus question for you. It's one of my favorite questions. And I'm assuming you know the book Atlas Shrugged.
I do.
Awesome. So one of my favorite books. I love the concept of it, love the ideology. I haven't finished it. I'm going to be totally honest. It's a very big book. But for the listeners out there that haven't heard it, the concept of this book says that us as business owners, Becky here, myself, the entrepreneurs listening to this, we put the world on our shoulders and we move the world forward every single day with our businesses. And what would happen if we all just shrugged it off? If we all just got rid of our businesses? So my question to you, Becky, is if today Atlas shrugged and all of us, you, me, all the business owners out there just said, we're done and we walked away for our businesses, the infrastructure is still there. The restaurants still exist. The home improvement materials are still out there. The internet's still alive. What would be the first business that you would start tomorrow?
Oh, wow. That's a really, really deep question. Wow, this is hard. I have absolutely no idea.
To
And I'm
give you
glad we're editing this.
Yeah, no, it's all edited afterwards, so you don't have to worry. To give
Yeah,
some
yeah.
context, we've heard a lot of different things here. We've heard everything from I love my coffee, so I'm going to start off a coffee shop, or I got to get my daily workout in, so I'm going to make sure I build a gym, all the way to, well, if there's no business, then I have to focus on helping people in the best way possible, and that's going to be helping to start businesses. Each person's different. Me personally, if every business ended and I folded my company, I would go work with kids between the ages of 8 to 14 in the development and the psychology of understanding how to be a business owner, how to push themselves in the world, how to be an athlete, and how guide the younger generations of people to position our world into a better spot in the next 20 to 30 years. That would be where my soul and my energy really goes to, is just trying to help as many people as possible and pave a way of success. So where does your mind go, Becky?
Yeah, I still am not sure, Kyle. Let me think about this for a second. Um, so, can it be something that would require, like, more study, like something
Oh
I'm
yeah, of
prepared to
course.
right now?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it would the whole point of the question is that when the limitations are removed, where does our heart go?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Well, the crazy thing is, Kyle, my instinct was to tell you that I would build the same business that I have right now.
I love that. I love that. And for the listeners out there, how powerful is that? Right? I mean, if you're looking for someone to actually help write a book, right, which is something of getting your soul, your emotion, your ideas all into paper, it's a very difficult process. You would want someone that, one, is emotionally tied to you and your business, and two, wants to do this. And Becky has shown this 100% throughout this video. Not only that, she has emotional tieback and empathy for every one of her clients, but if the world came to an end and we had to start this all over, she would start with helping people get it into writing and write their own books again, which is, Becky, exactly, I think, what the listeners want to hear, right? It's coming into a position where if you are an entrepreneur or a business owner and you want to write a book, how do they find you, Becky? How would they get connected with you?
Sure. Our website is weavinginfluence.com, so you can find us there. We are primarily our social channels for Weaving Influence are LinkedIn and Instagram. We're sharing content regularly. I also host a podcast called the Book Marketing Action Podcast. Folks can find my show, listen to some of our interviews. I'm always happy for people to email me if they're interested in working together. My email address is becky@weavinginfluence.com. And then I'm also personally on the social channels, so you can look for me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads. Those are my three main social channels.
I love that. And all that information is going to be found below in the description. We'll have her website, a link to her podcast, as well as any other details. Do me a favor. If you finish this video, like, comment, subscribe, and comment below what book you want to write, what book you're going to put together to solidify yourself as an authority in your space. Becky, thank you so much for your time. What you're doing in the world, I think, is not only super needed, but the support that you give people to get their mind, their intelligence, their knowledge out of their head and into paper is something that's needed, especially in the B2B space. In the B2B space, to solidify your knowledge and your real understanding, to support people through that process is a headache. I have been trying to write a book for 2 years. My father's been trying to write a book for 10 years. It's not an easy process. And for you to make it a step-by-step process that it's easy for the clients, puts them in a position of comfortability, which will get a better book out of you. I can promise you that. If you're comfortable and you're calm and you're working with someone like Becky, you'll get more out of the book you'll write than if you try to do it yourself. So thank you for joining us. Becky, thank you so much for your time. You are awesome. And again, if you finish this, like, comment below what book you're going to write, and subscribe to the page, and we'll see you on the next one.